The Honorable Chief Justice and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
The House will come to order.
The Senate will come to order.
I feel that I must also address something else that was peculiar to us when we saw it in the budget, and with all due respect to my colleagues in the judiciary, the concept of bonus money for moving cases is something that we would urge very careful scrutiny of. None of us want anything that could at all suggest to the public that there is some sort of financial motive for how quickly cases are processed in our court system. Beyond that, we don't know how it can work. If you are going to cut us an extra 300 prosecutors, and I know I'm talking only about
And you know, Bill, these are non-recurring dollars.
Yes, sir. I'm talking about the implications in the courtroom.
Yes.
If you're going to cut 300 more positions in our offices,
yes,
positions in the public defender's office, as to those criminal standards, how in the world that's going to work? There aren't going to be people there to allow it to work anyhow. We would just urge some very careful review of that whole concept.
And members, that's in a conforming bill that I'm sure will go to conference and it'll get worked out. This is something that Chairman Alexander had suggested, and that's why we have it in a conforming bill here. Senator Storms, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to follow up on the idea of incentivizing moving cases along, because I do think that that's an important discussion, and and as a member of the bar and as somebody who has seen the slow process of litigation through the system, I do think that I have to speak to that issue. Understand that we don't want anybody to believe that it is pay to play. I do understand that. That's a huge problem. But it's also true that the judiciary needs to remind litigants that attorneys cannot just throw things against the wall and hope they stick. So what we see in the court, you can look at the statistics across the circuits and say, how is it that this circuit or these particular judges are moving colossal amounts of cases with good, equitable results, and then other judges, are not moving them? And I know we've all seen investigative reports where journalists follow the judges out to the golf course and, show the empty parking space at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on a Wednesday.
Storms, don't forget also judges lobbying the legislature.
And judges lobbying the legislature. You understand? I mean, we all see that. And I've spoken with the chief judge about particular, hey, you need to look at this because these particular group of judges are a little out of whack in the hours, the measurable hours that their fanny is on the fabric in their courtroom. So, those are very serious issues. And so if we're not supposed to do that, and attorneys are saying, what the heck, I got to get this case filed, I got to toll the time period, but I haven't had a chance to develop pleadings, I'm just going to file something, throw it against the wall, and maybe nobody will notice. And so we all know that happens. We know that there are not hearings for summary judgment when there should be, and I myself ask judges, what were you doing? What were you doing in all this false documentation, fabricated evidence? What were you doing to say, what the heck is this? You can't file this because you're a member of the court. You're an officer. You're an officer of the law, and then you have every obligation to make sure that the pleadings are accurate. So how would you propose that we light a fire under both the members of the bar and the members of the judiciary to say, you know what, we need to move this case along because justice delayed is justice denied just as much as it is to say, we're not going to be responsive to you. That's both of those two things. So what's your proposal?
Mr. Chairman, may I understand what you're saying. Let me give you an example of something similar to it from probably the late 80s. At that time, it was discovered in one particular place that snitches in narcotics cases were being given financial remuneration based on how many cases they snitched out. that got litigated. The courts very plainly and very quickly said that is 100% inappropriate. You do not attach dollar motivation to something that can impact the doing of justice. And I think this is much the same. Am I going to dispute what you just said about judicial habits, at the risk again of offending my colleagues here? No, I am not. But I am going to tell you that we think it's very difficult to put a financial premium on it because it creates all sorts of impressions about how justice is bought. On top of that, it can't happen in the criminal courts if you've got less what happens with the judges if they try to speed that up by forcing the gerbil wheel to run faster is that my people, who are fewer in number, are being put under impossible pressures to get things done.
Mr. Chair, follow up? Yeah, and I can see how you could say, all right, maybe we don't want to do this in a criminal court, but I don't see why you can't say across the circuit, here's your goal, and so we know that in some of the courts it's just not possible because you have constitutionally mandated deadlines, and that's fine. And if he doesn't waive his right to a speedy trial, then or she, then you've got some issues there. I don't disagree with that, but I didn't ask you to agree with me on the problem. I asked you to give me some possible solutions.
All right, Senator, let me give you a couple. You have a JQC and you have a chief judge in each circuit. Now, all right, Senator, let me put it this way.
You see the whites of my eyes? Yes, I'm rolling my eyes.
Let me put it to you this way.
And it's not because it's 11 a.m.
Not quite. If legislation can be introduced that says that a prosecutor who makes a decision that is contrary to the interests of a certain interest group that lobbies heavily should be grieved because they make that judgment, then there must be some other mechanism through existing processes, like the chief judge who's responsible in each circuit to maintain whatever's going on with his or her judges, like the JQC, to look at why things aren't moving without there being this specter of you're buying better justice or faster justice or cheaper justice.
Please.
Well, then if what you're saying is true, that you cannot incent good judicial behavior, then what the heck are all these judges talking about? You can't cut our pay because you're going to get bad justice.
Call them up.
Well, they're both the same thing. It's the same thing you're saying, though. Don't cut my budget because you're going to get worse justice. But you can't incent me by giving me more money because, that's not effective either. You can't have both ends of the argument. It can't both be true.
Mr. Senator, a couple of years ago, we were forbidden from giving bonuses to our employees who we thought we were doing a good job for retention purposes. We were forbidden from doing it.
Well, but not from me.
No.
Not from you personally, no. But we were told, thou shalt not.
Mr. Chair, and
yes.
I think that I don't think we're going to resolve this today, but I just do want someone to have I want people in the public to hear what the debate is. I know that members of state attorney, public defenders, the judiciary, and court administrators up and down the state are all coming and saying, you're going to delay justice if you don't give us more money, and et cetera. And I don't disagree with that. But then we try and incent you to move your cases along and to have your fanny in the fabric in your courtroom, whether or not you're a state attorney, a public defender, or a judge, or a court administrator. And we're trying to incent that behavior. And then, oh no, well, money can't do it. I mean, that's not it at all.
Senator, I'm
just making the argument.
Yes, ma'am. There is a huge difference between funding to have positions there to handle cases and incentive money that is based on how fast you move them and creates all kinds of impressions about what's really going on to move them that fast. I never want one of my lawyers or some victim to walk out of a courtroom saying, well, that motion to dismiss got granted because it's the last day of the quarter and that judge needs the numbers to be better. I don't want that to happen.
I absolutely agree with that analysis, but I don't think that's what the proposal is. The proposal is not that... it is across a circuit. And so that instead of taking one particular judge, we all know that for instance, in foreclosure, you're not going to be able to move that along because of the volume and the velocity. But there are other areas that are not moving along, and it's because people are filing, I can't even use the descriptive word that's appropriate, but excretory pieces of pleadings and they're filing that, and nobody's calling them on it and saying, you're wasting our time, you're clogging up the system, get your fanny in there and draft something that's appropriate or suffer summary judgment. Nobody says that. Everybody goes, well, we're all polite and we're all gentlemen and ladies here, and so, and I don't want to get you in trouble, so I'm not going to haul you in here, and we all have to, play nicely. But meanwhile, people are suffering the injustice of delay. And that's a huge injustice, too. People can be crushed under the injustice of delay just as much as they can be by some bad act of somebody else. So that's all I'm saying.
Understood. And I'm not opposed to what you're saying. I'm telling you that money incentive does not sound like a wise idea. And more importantly than that, in the criminal context, with less prosecutors, it's going to be real hard to pull off.
Agreed on that point, and agreed on not incenting on criminal justice. Agreed.
And if it is, as you say, Bill, hard to pull off, we'll have $10 million to work with next year.
We'll take it. Thank you, Senator.
Senator Storms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I just did want to say one thing, because I think the judges have taken a beating, and it is true. They are the third branch. And I do want to say that it's very important for us as legislators, despite everything that I've already said. It's not true that all the judges are, going to the golf course. And I know that there are judges, lots of good judges, the majority of the judges that are working very hard on this issue. But, I just think that we have to take a look at both sides of it, and we can't protect, without saying you have some obligations here to make sure that we're moving, as rapidly as and efficiently as possible. But then the final thing that I did want to say, Mr. Chair, because I do think that it's important, the judiciary is such an important part of what we do in the administration of justice. It is important that we have quality judges. It is important, in my opinion, that you don't have judges that just got out of law school, that have zero life experience, that have, that are young people with nothing to draw on, with no experience when they're making some of the decisions and the impact that they're making on life. In order to avoid that, I think that there are some statutory things that we need to do, but that's not before us today. What is before us is the ability to make sure that the kind of people we're attracting to the bench are quality people. In my opinion, you want people who served for a long time in the process of law. You want people who maybe have something to give up, that they're walking away from a good practice. In order to attract those kind of people, you do have to pay them well. You're not going to attract people who have spent a lifetime in law to come work themselves into the ground for, not sufficient pay. And so I do want to say that I recognize that, I value that, I appreciate that, and I'm trying to balance those needs against the people that aren't doing everything that they could. So that's all, Mr. Chair.
That's
Thank
fine,
you.
and we appreciate that, Senator Storms. If you look on page 5 at the beginning of the packet, there is a
At the beginning of the packet?
actually the beginning of the entire packets. You will see a draft judicial caseloads incentive plan. Claude, can you just expand on it's $10 million. Stop me if I'm wrong in any way. There's an incentive plan there for each circuit to meet certain goals. They would have to meet certain goals if in the civil area. If they meet those certain goals, those judges would receive approximately a $12,000 bonus. In the criminal part, they would have to meet certain goals, and one of those goals would be to how can I put it? To have their caseload would be no lower than what they had last year, the prior year. And they would also receive a $12,000 bonus. Gotcha. And I see Senator Bennett shaking his head. And Senator Bennett, just so you know, I have great concerns about this as well. This is something that we were asked to do by the Budget Committee, and this is what staff came up with. Senator Bennett, further?
Absolutely. I mean, I realize that, but I think that's the Criminal Judicial Appropriating Committee. And in this committee, we've been authorized, or we've been told we had to take a certain amount of cut, and I think as best as we can, we should manage it in this committee. And when I've got the clerks who continuously taking hits, we've told them that they have to put everything appropriately. And at the same time, nobody else in the state of Florida that I know is getting a raise. And so we're going to give a judge a raise because he finally does his job and manages his docket. Can somebody run that by me one more time? I'm just a little bit slow on that.
Yes, sir.
But I kind of figured out that, you got paid to do your job, and incentives were more than that. I think if Senator Smith comes over to me as an attorney and asks for a continuous, and I give it to him, and then Senator Thrasher comes in and wants a continuous on the other side, and then Senator Smith comes back and wants a continuous on the other side, my docket continues to grow.
Yes, sir.
But if I tell Senator Smith, no, we're going to court on this next January 22nd, and if you're not ready, Senator Smith, I'm going to have your client sue you, okay? Guess what? He would be ready.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
the incentive that I think that they need.
Sir.
And I need to get the money for the clerks who are taking additional heat, okay? And we all like our judges, or some people like their judges, but I think that it's very important. I mean, I do like my clerk.
Yes.
Okay? And so I think that if we're going to be up here fighting, everybody's going to be fighting hard for their judges. I think that we have just as big a responsibility to fight for our clerks. And if we're going to put additional burden on them to get everything incentivized and get everything on the computer so we can save costs in the future, then I think that we should be, in this committee, should be fighting for that money.
Yes, sir. Very well. Your points are well taken. Thank you, Senator Joyner, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the criminal side, if the cases are going to move expeditiously, then you're going to need, then the state attorney and the public defender are players in the prompt movement of that, not solely the judge. So if you're going to give some incentives, then you got to give some to the state attorney and the public defender on the criminal side. Because just as you said, if the state says we're ready to proceed, and if the public defender on the flip side says I'm ready and the state isn't, there's the balance that you need in order to get the case moved. So give them a piece of the pot if we're going to distribute any extra money. But back to, and I'll defer to Senator Bennett's recommendation on this.
If you would, and if I could say one other thing,
Sure,
I don't mind giving
Go right
that.
ahead, Senator Bennett.
I don't mind that state's attorney who's getting $40,000 a year for working 60 hours a week. I wouldn't mind helping him out.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
There's a different size, or the public defender, either one. Okay. But the judge who's knocking down $1.25, do his job.
Okay. Senator Joyner, please.
I injected them because they are also a part of the process. And if there's timely movement on the criminal side, it's because they too are there ready to proceed. And so, and they need all the help they can get. Just retaining these lawyers who have to pay their dues, who have to pay their law school loans, and consequently, they're losing people in overwhelming numbers because of this low salary and this high caseload. So I'd like to incentivize them if there's going to be an incentive on the criminal side.
And they told me this committee would be boring.
Well, I'm just afraid it's going to run the
Senator
light
Evers,
bill
you're
up.
recognized.
I'm just afraid it's going to run the light bill up and offset anything that we
Okay. Anyone else? Senator Storms.
Well, I wanted to cut and paste my arguments from last Friday on it because I do think that I think that we need to offer both sides of the argument on providing incentives. It is true that we expect people to do their jobs and do it professionally, but that could be made for any incentive that you say. I mean, whether it's a civil engineer, whether it's an architect, whether it's a doctor, we provide incentives for doctors to fiscal incentives for doctors to keep their caseload. HMOs do that. Hospitals provide, surgeons provide incentives. There's not an area that we don't say we understand that a fiscal incentive really lights a fire under people. My guess is that there are people here, even on this committee, who are private sector employees that offer their staff fiscal incentives because they know they're professionals, but they know that fiscal incentive will really light a fire under them. And the truth of the matter is, it's not just the judges, it's also the attorneys, and up and down the line, people are not moving their dockets. And we will realize more fiscal accountability if we move these dockets along. So I think it's a good strategy. I think it's something that should be done. I understand that judges do make a lot of money. I know that they make, very good money right now. But the fact of the matter is that if you want to attract good judges, not just some young man or young woman who's 5 years out of law school, who doesn't have any life experience whatsoever. You want somebody who's had life experience, who's had a great deal of time on the bench. And in order to attract that kind of a person, that kind of seasoned person, you've got to ask them to give up their career after 20 years. And they're not making $150,000 to walk away from that career. They're making significantly more than that. And so in order to do that, if you want that kind of a quality person, and I've sat across the table from judges that are, barely have their driver's license yet. You understand? I mean, it makes a difference if you're a young person and you have no life experience whatsoever. You don't have anything to draw on, no ability to balance out what you think as a young person because you don't have that life experience. You're only 5 years into the bar. You're that kind of a judge. $150,000 to that kind of a young person looks like a lot of money. But to a person who has 20 years on the bench, $150,000 is a step down for that person. And we want to attract people who are who looks like $150,000 is a step down, but they want to do it as a public service. They've learned a lot from the bar. They have a wide breadth of experience, and they know that you just don't hammer somebody who's, made one mistake. That everybody makes mistakes in life, whereas if you're a young person, you can be levying punishments on people with no respect and no regard for that, for your personal life experience. And so I just want to caution people that we're trying to attract a balance to the judiciary. I think, as I said on Friday or Thursday, whenever it was we were here, we need to do something to raise the amount of years. We shouldn't be having these babies come right out of law school and be able to be judges. That's one strategy. But the other strategy is to make sure that we're doing what we can to attract a quality judiciary. Now, that being said, Mr. Chair, we absolutely need to light a fire under these judges that are not performing competently. And we have all seen investigative reporters that are running around chasing these judges on the golf course on Friday, and that are not there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, and they're not there at 12 noon on Friday. We need to certainly penalize those judges, but the way to do that is to make sure that you incentivize good behavior and you punish bad behavior. And I think that that's what that does. And so I think it's a shot. I think it's worth a shot, and that's what my perspective is, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Senator Bennett, Senator Storm, Senator Joyner, I too have concerns with this proposal. It's very hard for me to support something that is going to give a bonus to an individual that's making well over $100,000 a year when there are proposals out there to reduce or require our rank and file employees of the state, the county, and city to contribute up to 5% of their own money to a Florida retirement system. Not that I am opposed to them participating in some way, but we can't incentivize a group of judges when we haven't given a pay raise to the average state, county, and city the average state employee for the last 5 years, and for some of them they've actually taken a pay cut. Plus, I'm with you, Senator Bennett. I believe that they get paid to do a job. And if they cannot handle that job, then they need to go find another job. Because there are many other qualified individuals who can run for those offices, whether it be a judge, a state senator, a county commissioner, a property appraiser. If you're not happy with the salary, move on and let someone else fill the spot. But with your permission, we will keep this as a work in progress. We'll forward this on to the full budget committee, and then we'll see what happens at that point. You certainly may. And
then what would be the appropriate time to file an amendment to this?
Probably in the budget committee. Do you sit on the budget committee?
No, I do not.
Then we'll, maybe I'll file an amendment on your behalf if you'd like.
If you would.
Let me throw this out at you. Why don't we at least, I want to be careful in taking votes here, but we want to make a recommendation, I think, to the full budget committee. And is there anyone other than Senator Storms that supports the proposal before us? Senator Thrasher, please.
Thank you. Are you going to pick out individual pieces that we're going to talk about? I mean, if you are, then I'd like to know if I can speak to my concerns about whatever it is we're going to propose to the.
Well, the conforming bill, as you know, has several elements in it. I think the one that the Senator Bennett is speaking about is the bonus program to judges. That would be the one that I'm specifically pointing out.
Well, my question, I guess,
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, are we going to speak to other issues?
If you'd like to.
Well, I mean, if we're going
Senator Fasano?
Yeah, Senator Bennett.
If we're going to do one, let's open it all up.
No, I think that what Senator Thrasher is saying is if you're going to take up my issue, why wouldn't we take up his issue or Senator Smith's issue and do it all the time? Because you were talking about going down and doing an amendment as something that I would like to see done, and I think he's basically saying the same thing.
Well, Senator Thrasher, though, sits on the Budget Committee.
That's true.
So he can do an amendment. I was doing as a courtesy to you because you don't sit on the
right.
And Senator Smith, I don't know if you sit on the Budget Committee or not. So what I was just saying as a courtesy to you, I would do it because you don't sit on the Budget Committee.
And I would
and you could show up and explain why you're doing what you're doing.
And I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
And like Senator Storm said, and I do understand it, but on the same token, there's a lot of people that give up high-paying positions. I certainly made a lot more than $26,000 a year when I did this. And I know that Senator Thrasher made a lot more than $26,000 a year when he decided, and I think everybody up here probably did. But you do it because you love the process and the rest of it. And I think a lot of people go into the judge's chair because they love the process, they love the law. So I would like to do it. If you would do that for me, I would certainly appreciate it. However, in the same token, if we're going to do that, then part of my request to you would be to transfer that money back to the clerks.
Well,
my amendment.
Senator Bennett.
And you said you filed it.
You're absolutely. I would be more than willing, and as a courtesy to you, I will offer the amendment, and you can be there to speak on it at the Budget Committee. Absolutely, sir. And again, I would probably support your amendment, but that's just one of many members on the Budget Committee.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Senator Smith, please.
If you're, from my understanding, you're trying to get a sense of the committee regarding this issue.
Yes.
And so I guess I'll go ahead.
And Senator Smith, the reason is so I can go and sit and speak to Chairman Alexander and explain that that the census of the committee is this or that.
Okay. Well, I guess my first thoughts would be that the bonus aspect is fraught with danger because there's so many things that go into moving a docket and so many players that are involved in moving a docket. And so I don't think the playing field is ever fair that one judge can move a docket because maybe the state attorney civil case, because they have certain types of cases as compared to another that has foreclosure cases or something that can't move. So I don't think you're not comparing apples to apples if you're talking about bonus money. It's fraught with danger. But so I would agree with, I support the judge. Trust, as an attorney in Broward County, any Broward County judges, especially Judge Holmes, if you're listening, I support the judges. I don't need Lana Holmes calling me tomorrow. I support the judges, but I think in this aspect, you're opening Pandora's box with offering a bonus like that with so many things going into, and I would not want to open Pandora's box and possibly use the money towards the clerks.
Okay. I think I've heard you loud and clear, and I'll speak with Senator Alexander and see what direction he'd like for us to go. And the bill, the proposal, if it is taken up in the Budget Committee, Senator Bennett, if you'd like to get us the language, we'll offer the amendment for you. Okay. Senator Thrasher.
Well, I'd ask Senator Bennett if he'd consider a substitute when he's getting ready to do that, of maybe splitting the $10 million between the clerks, the state attorneys, and the public defenders.
I would be all for that. I never thought I would support a Bennett and Thrasher amendment within 30 seconds.
I'd have to think about that.
Let's talk.
We can negotiate.
And I want to point something out, that there's a very good chance that if these dollars are not used for this conforming bill, I don't know if we'll be able to keep that $10 million, just so you know that might go somewhere else. But not that I want you to change your mind, Senator Bennett, but it may not be available to be used in any other part of our budgets.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Thrasher, please.
This will be the last thing I say on this.
That's okay.
In all due respect to Senator Alexander, I think we all know this is his idea, and I think he's trying to create efficiencies, as Senator Storm said much better than I could. So I think it's incumbent on all of us who want to talk about this in more detail to talk to Senator Alexander.
Absolutely.
And because he worked hard on this. He I think believes in it, and he believes in the concept of what he's trying to get to. Maybe it's the wrong way to do it, but clearly he's trying to create efficiencies in a system that certainly could use some.
And Senator Thresher, I agree with you, and I know that our staff worked diligently to try and come up with something, and that presented to Senator Alexander, and I commend Chairman Alexander for trying to encourage all of us to come up with innovative ways of efficiency and making certain that the process works, and I appreciate that.